Crisis control. President Obama on his way to a NATO summit amidst world conflicts.
We need action now to scale up the response.
A warning that action must be swift as the Ebola virus spreads. Peace games. Soccer greats playing a match to promote peace meet with Pope Francis. And talking statues?
Meow.
Art comes to life in London. We explore this exciting digital experience. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, September 2nd, 2014. Good evening from Washington. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick with your news now. Islamic State militants say they've beheaded a second American journalist. They're warning President Obama to stop U.S. airstrikes in Iraq. Wyatt Goolsby is here covering that story. Wyatt?
Brian, an internet video posted by the militants today claims to show the beheading of 31-year-old Steven Sotloff. He had been in captivity in Syria for more than a year. In the video, Sotloff is shown speaking to the camera before he is killed, saying he is, quote, paying the price for U.S. intervention. The militant in the video tells President Obama that he is back and warns the Islamic State will continue to retaliate if the U.S. does not stop bombing their group in Iraq.
So just as your missiles continue to strike our people, our knife will continue to strike the necks of your people.
The militant also threatens the life of British captive David Haines. Sotloff appeared last month in an Islamic State video showing the decapitation of another American journalist, James Foley. The militant in the video warned that Sotloff's fate depended on what President Obama did next in Iraq. Now, last week, Sotloff's mother released a video pleading for mercy from his captors. Sotloff's disappearance, well reported last year, but his family kept the news secret, worried he would be harmed if they went public. And neither the White House nor the State Department has been able to prove the video is authentic, but officials say the video will be studied closely. And Brian, they say their thoughts and their prayers go off to the Sotloff family.
And ours too. Thank you, Wyatt. No doubt ISIS will be discussed at the NATO summit this week, along with Russia's actions in Ukraine. President Obama left this afternoon. He's on his way right now. And Jason Calvi is at the White House. Jason?
Ryan, the president has much to do during this European trip. For one, to convince European allies of continued U.S. support for them. This comes amidst growing worries about Russia.
President Obama leaves the White House this afternoon for 3 days of meetings in Europe, starting with the three presidents of the Baltic nations of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, countries that were once part of the Soviet Union. The president then travels to Wales to join a NATO summit Thursday and Friday. But right now, allies in Europe are anxious about Russia's actions in Ukraine.
Clear violation of the territorial integrity of Ukraine.
Ukraine says it's no longer battling just pro-Russian separatists, but actual Russian troops in their country.
Armed forces of the Russian Federation are continuing to concentrate human resources and military vehicles in seized towns.
That's a view echoed by the White House today.
We have seen Russia provide weapons and material from the Russian side of the border into Ukraine, and there's ample evidence to indicate that Russian soldiers have been on the ground in Ukraine.
But Russia denies sending troops over the border. Instead, Russia blames Ukraine, calling their government the war party.
It is necessary to restrain the war party in Kiev, and in reality, only the U.S. can do this.
And Europeans also worried about a report of a leaked conversation involving President Putin, where he reportedly said that he could take the capital of Ukraine within 2 weeks if he wanted. Just one more thing, Brian, for the president to worry about during this European trip.
All right, at the White House, and of course is Jason Calvi. We welcome back Daniel Kochis from the Davis Institute for National Security and Foreign Policy at the Heritage Foundation. So this video just surfaced now. Was there any strategy for ISIS to release this right now?
I think that administration officials, many of them believe that actually the beheading took place at the same time as the beheading of Mr. Foley. They also believe that potentially the British journalist has already been killed as well. And so the strategy here is that ISIS, the airstrikes have been very effective against them. We're seeing the Iraqi army make advances from the south, also the Kurds being able to hold Erbil. And so what this is doing is this is trying to put pressure on the American administration to scale back those airstrikes.
What is the next move for the White House? Is it time that no strategy be solidified into some strategy?
Certainly, I think so. I think that there has to be a strategy for dealing with ISIS, and so the recruitment, there also has to be a strategy for dealing with the 100 Americans and estimated 3,000 Westerners that have gone to fight with ISIS, and also these airstrikes need to be ramped up in order to allow the Peshmerga and also the Iraqi forces to be able to make further advances.
This is just one of the world crises going on right now. You've got Ukraine and the Soviet Union, Russia, all part of the old Soviet Union. Estonia was also part of that. So the president is visiting Estonia first before he goes to the NATO summit. This is important. You wrote about it.
Correct. This is an important message. So Tallinn, the capital of Estonia, is only 539 miles from Moscow. This is a former Soviet republic. The president's also meeting with the presidents of Latvia and Lithuania, also former Soviet republics. And so this is going to send a very strong message to Vladimir Putin and those around him that some of the same machinations that he's using on Crimea and on the rest of Ukraine shouldn't be used on NATO members such as Estonia.
We've heard a lot about Ukraine, very little about Estonia. Do we even have, what kind of relations does the U.S. have with Estonia?
The U.S. has very good relations with Estonia, and so the three Baltic states have sent forces to both Afghanistan and Iraq. Estonian troops fought in Helmand province, one of the most dangerous parts of Afghanistan. These are really model places for NATO. They invest 2% of GDP in sort of their defense, and so this is very important for the U.S. to continue to solidify these relations.
So this seems like an opportunity for the president to really emerge as a leader at this NATO summit with all this going on. Do you see that happening?
I hope so. Like you said, this is a very important summit. The first one before combat operations in Afghanistan are ended. The first one since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. NATO needs to get back to basics, and so this means putting in permanent troops in places like Estonia, Poland, those on the Eastern Front, and continuing to invest in defense. What comes out of this NATO summit is really going to determine sort of the future of NATO moving forward.
We will be watching. Daniel Kochis with the Heritage Foundation, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And now some of the other stories our EWTN News Nightly team has been covering in today's world. U.S. military forces go after Al-Shabaab, that network in Somalia. That's an al-Qaeda affiliate. The group claims responsibility for the 2013 attack on a mall in Kenya. 67 people were killed. The Pentagon says the results of Monday's operation in Somalia are still being assessed tonight. British Prime Minister David Cameron is proposing new steps to fight Islamic extremism at home. The government hopes to stop radicalized Britons from traveling overseas to join ISIS, then returning home to launch attacks. The proposal would give police temporary power to seize passports of suspected terrorists at the border. Pope Francis is back into his normal routine this week after a slower summer season. The Holy Father resumed his daily Mass for Vatican workers and a few others. He celebrates that Mass at Santa Marta residence where he lives. His Monday homily focused on Christian authority coming from the Holy Spirit, not from human wisdom or degrees in theology. He went on to say a person can have 5 degrees in theology but not have the Spirit of God. Maybe that person is a great theologian, he says, but not a Christian without the Spirit of God. The Pope warned against being watered-down Christians at his Sunday Angelus address. He told the crowd gathered in St. Peter's Square on Sunday that living in the world, we run the risk of losing the inspiration of newness. He said we need to continually renew ourselves by reading and meditating on the gospel. The Holy Father says renewal also comes from participating in Holy Mass, especially the Sunday Mass, where we find the Lord in community. Soccer superstars from around the world faced off in a game sponsored by the Vatican last night. The Pope greeted all the players beforehand. Our Rome correspondent Alan Holdren has been following the action. Alan?
That's right, Brian. Pope Francis welcomed some of the best soccer players on earth to the Vatican yesterday. This is all part of a series of initiatives here in the Vatican that are promoting peace and values through sport, and it's drawing the attention of the world.
Participants in this papal audience are household names in Europe, Latin America, and much of the rest of the planet. Soccer greats from all over. The occasion, the first ever interreligious soccer match for peace. The Pope shared his secret for success off the field, opening up to one another and treating them like brothers and sisters.
Fratelli a fratelli.
A personal greeting. This is superstar Argentine Diego Maradona. A hug, words, and even a gift. The same experience for 50 other soccer players and their wives and children, all signing on to Pope Francis' call for solidarity. one of the greatest names in soccer, told EWTN News Nightly what brought him here.
Porque es humano.
The Pope's human touch inspired him. The game was broadcast from Rome to 12 countries worldwide. 20,000 people attended. The Vatican actually has an office devoted to bringing the Church's message to sports. Experts are gathering here in Rome after the game.
Our goal and objective for this is to come up with one idea that we're all together, and although we all think in different ideas in parts of the world, we all have the same vision of sport, faith, evangelization.
Each initiative uniting Pope Francis' loves of faith, sports, and fraternity.
One other detail that you should know is that a co-sponsor of the event yesterday is this initiative launched by Pope Francis last year called Scolas Ocurrentes, working for social integration and for creating a dialogue, a culture of encounter, which is very, very close to Pope Francis' heart. Brian?
All right, great story. Thanks. Alan Holdren reporting from Rome. Coming up, the sister of an American held in North Korea speaks out after her brother meets with a journalist. And dozens of teenagers make a daring break from a Tennessee juvenile detention center. Thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday evening, September 2nd. I'm Brian Patrick. Another missionary doctor has tested positive for Ebola and is now in isolation in Monrovia. The doctor was not specifically treating Ebola patients. It's not known how the virus was contracted. At least 1,552 people have died, and nearly twice that many have been infected since the outbreak began in West Africa last December. Now it seems it may be much worse than expected.
An urgent response to get more patients into care, more work getting done in the communities, safer burials. All of these things will begin to get this outbreak under control.
The director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention visited West Africa to see the epidemic firsthand. He now believes restrictions on travel to the region are actually hurting relief efforts.
The measures that have been taken that have made it harder to fly in and fly out have made it harder to get help in, harder to control the epidemic, and therefore, paradoxically, have increased risk to other places.
Meanwhile, President Obama released a video statement speaking directly to the people in West Africa.
The first step in this fight is knowing the facts.
Promising the U.S.'s support and partnership to battle this outbreak.
Stopping this disease won't be easy, but we know how to do it. You are not alone. Together we can treat those who are sick with respect and dignity. We can save lives.
A step in that direction? The FDA has given a green light for a new Ebola human safety trial for a vaccine this week, the first of its kind in humans. And dozens of teenagers break out of a Tennessee juvenile detention center, and some are still out there tonight. Police say at least 8 are still missing. The group of 32 teens overpowered as many as 18 staff members late last night. They then ripped up a weak spot in a fence and crawled underneath shortly after a shift change.
Staffing is lighter during the overnight hours, and so presumably they had planned for that, but we don't know quite yet.
2 teens were captured immediately. Others were found overnight or eventually turned themselves in. There were 78 teenagers in the state facility at the time of the escape. Most had committed at least 3 felonies. Family members of an Arizona 9-year-old who accidentally shot and killed her instructor with an Uzi says they are devastated. In a statement released today, the girl's relatives say they are praying for Charles Vaca's family and asking us to do the same. Police say the girl said she felt the gun was too much for her and firing it hurt her shoulder. Instructor Charles Vaca was standing nearby last week when she squeezed the trigger of the automatic rifle. The gun's recoil wrenched the Uzi upward. Bullets struck Vaca, killing him. Prosecutors are not filing any charges in this case. A Louisiana law requiring abortion doctors to have admitting privileges at nearby hospitals goes into effect today, but a federal judge's temporary restraining order issued on Sunday night means that for 30 days, those doctors can continue to work in clinics without hospital privileges while their applications are pending at local hospitals. The Louisiana Right to Life Federation tells EWTN News Nightly the judge made a fair decision.
The decision the judge made does not block or freeze the law, as some media outlets report. It allows the law to go into effect, but it follows what the Fifth Circuit has already required, that if abortionists have pending applications for admitting privileges at local hospitals, then they can continue to do abortions.
Supporters say the laws protect women's safety by providing continuity of care if a patient is hospitalized. Opponents say laws like this one give hospitals the power to decide whether an abortion clinic can stay open or be closed. Well, this battle is also being fought in Texas. Guidelines for abortion facilities there will stay below hospital-level standards for now. A federal judge's ruling last week keeps more than a dozen abortion clinics from imminent closure. The Texas law would require abortion facilities to have operating rooms with air filtration and other high-cost systems that are common to surgery suites. Texas Attorney General Greg Abbott is appealing that ruling. The sister of an American held by North Koreans is asking for mercy after hearing from her brother in an unexpected interview.
It's painful to just watch him time after time being put on camera by the DPRK officials to make the same plea to our government.
Kenneth Bae is serving a 15-year prison sentence. North Korea claims he was part of a Christian plot to overthrow the regime. He's one of 3 Americans detained in North Korea. On Monday, the regime unexpectedly allowed CNN journalists to interview the men. As North Korean officials looked on, all 3 said they have signed statements admitting their guilt, and all 3 said they hope the U.S. government will send an envoy to help them.
I do believe that special envoy need to come in order to resolve the situation that I am in right now. So I do ask the U.S. government to send an envoy as soon as possible. And otherwise, I think that's the only hope that I have right now in order for me to go home, be united with my family.
Now Bae's sister is speaking out.
We know that they've been working hard behind the scenes, but the fact remains he's still there after 2 years. So, I think we reiterate our plea and saying, this time, if there was ever a time to step up the efforts, it's now. They're signaling a window. Please respond. Please bring him home.
As for the others, Jeffrey Edward Fowle is an American tourist accused of leaving a Bible in a hotel where he was staying. And Matthew Todd Miller is accused of tearing up his tourist visa and seeking asylum after entering North Korea. Both were arrested in April. Up next, September is Alzheimer's Month, and we discuss the disease that can devastate families. And digital technology combines with creative imagination, bringing London statues to life. We're grateful you're watching EWTN News Nightly. I'm Brian Patrick. On this Tuesday, September 9th and September 2nd. September is World Alzheimer's Month. Alzheimer's is a type of dementia that causes problems with memory, thinking, and behavior. There is no known cure. Here are some of the facts about this disease. More than 5 million Americans live with Alzheimer's. It is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States, and nearly 2/3 of Americans with Alzheimer's are women. Pope Francis often talks about caring for the elderly. The Holy Father told a group of Catholic healthcare professionals last year, quote, "Every elderly person bears the face of Christ." He said they cannot be discarded as the culture of waste suggests. Anna Nelson is Vice President of Programs and Services at the Alzheimer's Association National Capital Area Chapter. And Anna, we just mentioned some Alzheimer's facts for the U.S. How prevalent is it in the world?
There are actually over 44 million people worldwide living with some form of dementia. That number is expected to double in 20 years and triple by the year 2050.
That's frightening. There's no known cure. Is there a treatment?
There is no treatment, and you're right, there is no cure. There are medications in the market that help with the symptoms for a period of time, but the Alzheimer's Association is looking to change that. We're the world's largest nonprofit funder of Alzheimer's research. Just recently, we hosted the International Conference in Denmark, which is the largest forum for presentations and discussions on the latest of Alzheimer's. So I invite your viewers to visit us online at alz.org and learn about the interesting research work taking place.
Would you say that good progress is being made in research?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm just very excited about the work that was presented at the conference, especially in early detection, prevention, and treatment.
One of the heartbreaking things about Alzheimer's is how much people change. So someone you know and love doesn't seem to be that same person. How can we compassionately reach out to people in their suffering?
And that's where we can help. The Alzheimer's Association, our National Capital Area Chapter, is here to help families every step of the way through our programs and services. We provide educational presentations for family caregivers. For those individuals living with a disease, we have a whole series of workshops for them. Once that diagnosis is made, if someone is in the very early stages, a lot of times there's no services in the community. And we have started a number of new initiatives for folks in the very early stages. And we also offer programs and trainings for family caregivers.
So are there national resources as well?
Yes, and I invite your viewers to visit us at www.alz.org. Our website is full of wonderful resources and online tools to connect families to the resources in their communities.
All right, so let's give the Alzheimer's Association's 24/7 helpline. That number is 1-800-272-3900, and alz.org is the website, alz.org. Anna, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Well, as Wales hosts this week's NATO Summit, we now get to see 6 of the most iconic castles in Wales from a whole new perspective. The Welsh government uses camera drones to capture a bird's eye view of the monuments for a project called Castles in the Sky. Some of the highlights: the medieval abbey in Tintern and the Victorian Castell Cork, also known as the Fairy Tale Castle. This video was released in June, and it's already been viewed more than 7,000 times online.
People really do appreciate that opportunity to see some of our greatest castles in a way that they've never seen them before. It gives them a new insight, a new perspective, and it really has captured people's imagination.
And there's now interest in sending drone cameras to capture video of other Welsh castles and heritage sites in Wales. In nearby London, statues are coming to life through a new interactive arts project. You can actually get a phone call from a fictional or historical character. Catherine Elliott reports.
Hello, and meow. Good of you to call by.
Meet Hodge the cat, a feisty feline immortalized in James Boswell's book, Life of Samuel Johnson. Up until now, the closest literary fans could get to the famous black cat was this statue tucked away in central London. But now that's all changed.
I don't mind if you stare at me. Take a good look at me. Examine my expression. I am justifiably proud.
Sing London, a London nonprofit arts organization, has teamed up with a digital think tank to breathe life into the city's statues.
We thought if statues could talk, what stories might they tell?
By using their smartphones to scan a digital code or typing in a short web address, visitors get a call from the statues.
We just wanted something that really made it kind of personal and made you feel like you were having a personal engagement with these statues. So the phone call really kind of broke down that barriers.
Sing London commissioned a host of UK writers, actors, and comedians to create monologues for the various statues and sculptures.
It's really interesting. I've walked past the statue a lot over the past 4 years and didn't know a huge amount, so it's interesting to hear a bit more about the history of the cat.
It was also really funny, which is what I liked about it. The voice actor was really funny, did weird little meow noises throughout it, which was interesting.
Some statues tell stories you know already, like Victoria. We know why she's there.
Hello, Victoria here. Queen of England for 63 years, 7 months and 2 days. But who's counting?
We want to connect people to the public spaces which we all share. And in a sense, it's persuading you to look out from your phone and at the world, which is all of ours.
The statues will talk for a year, and organizers hope to bring the experience to other cities around the world.
Don't worry, I'm not real.
Catherine Elliott, EWTN News Nightly.
What a great idea. Good story. Thank you, Catherine. Until tomorrow, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, watch again anytime on EWTN's YouTube page. For all of us at EWTN News Nightly, I'm Brian Patrick. Thanks for watching. We leave you tonight with highlights of that Match for Peace soccer game at the Vatican. Good night, and God bless you.